Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Warm water ran over her hands as soap bubbles clung to her fingers, the faint scent of lemon filling the kitchen. Evening light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft golden hue across the room. Behind her, she felt the familiar presence before she even heard the quiet footsteps. A hand rested lightly on her waist, firm enough to be felt, gentle enough to stir her heartbeat. He didn't speak right away. The hum of the running tap was the only sound between them, until he leaned in just close enough for his breath to brush her neck. Her shoulders tensed, not from fear, but from that rush of heat she always felt when he came near without warning. They had been together for years, yet moments like this still felt new, unexpected, thrilling, like a sudden spark in the middle of a calm evening. His fingers traced a slow path along the fabric of her dress, not rushing, not forcing, just enough to make her pause mid-rinse, dish halfway forgotten. "You always smell like home," he murmured, his voice low, meant only for her. The simple words carried more weight than any grand confession. It wasn't about the dishes, the kitchen, or the day that had passed. It was about the way they both stood there, caught between the routine and the pull of something more. She turned her head slightly, catching his eyes in the reflection of the darkened window. There it was again, unspoken tension, a teasing challenge, the look that said he wanted her attention, all of it. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the sink, a small shiver running down her spine. Should she turn and face him? Or should she let him tease a little longer? The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer. His hands didn't move away. Instead, he stayed close, close enough to make her heartbeat echo in her ears. The night was young, the dishes forgotten, and something in his quiet insistence told her this moment was far from ordinary. She exhaled slowly, unsure whether to break the silence or wait for him to take the next step. Because whatever was about to happen, it wasn't just about a playful touch in the kitchen. It was the beginning of a night that neither of them would forget. And then, he whispered her name. The whisper lingered in the air like a secret neither of them was ready to say out loud. Her fingers stilled in the soapy water, heartbeat thudding a little faster as his voice sank deeper into her thoughts. Slowly, she turned, not all the way, just enough for their eyes to catch in the narrow space between them. His hand moved higher, not in a rush, but with the patience of someone who knew the effect of every inch. Her breath hitched when his thumb brushed the side of her waist, tracing the line of her dress as if he were trying to memorize the shape of her without words. "You're quiet," he said softly, his voice steady, but his gaze searching her face. There was a question hidden there. Was she okay with this? Did she want him to stop, or was she silently asking for more? She managed a small smile, the kind that only half revealed what she was thinking. "I'm just surprised," she whispered. His brow furrowed slightly, as if there was something he wasn't saying either. Lately, the days had been long, filled with unspoken distance between work, chores, and routine. Maybe this was his way of closing that gap, of reminding her that even in the quiet moments, he still reached for her. The warmth from the sink mixed with the warmth of his chest close behind her, and suddenly the kitchen didn't feel so ordinary anymore. Her fingers curled against the counter edge as his other hand rose to gently brush a strand of hair away from her neck. The touch was tender, but it carried a weight that made her chest tighten. She turned a little more, their faces now only inches apart. His eyes flicked down briefly, hesitant, wanting, but he didn't lean in yet. Instead, his voice lowered further. "Sometimes I wonder if we've been too caught up in everything else." The words settled between them, heavier than his touch. It wasn't just about now, it was about the times they'd missed, the moments left unsaid. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. All she managed was a faint nod, her pulse loud in her ears. And just as she thought he would close the distance, he pulled back slightly, not away, but enough to leave her wanting, waiting, wondering. The air between them grew heavier, thick with everything they weren't saying. His fingers lingered at her waist, not pulling her closer yet not letting go either. It was a quiet battle of restraint, both of them caught in the space between routine comfort and the craving for something more. She could feel the heat of his chest behind her, steady and deliberate, while her own breath came shallow, betraying the calm she tried to hold. Her hands gripped the edge of the sink, the cool ceramic under her palms a sharp contrast to the warmth that crept up her neck. "Do you ever think we got too used to being busy?" His voice was quiet, not accusing, but carrying a trace of vulnerability she hadn't heard in a while. She tilted her head just slightly, enough to catch his expression in the glass again. There was no anger there, just a searching gaze, as if he was asking for something beyond the words. "Maybe," she murmured, her voice softer than she intended. "But busy doesn't mean disconnected." He gave a small, almost crooked smile. "Then why does it feel like I'm always trying to find you in the same house?" The words settled deep, stirring something she didn't want to admit had been growing. They had always been close, but lately, the closeness had been more about habit than heat. And now, in this kitchen, with the faint scent of lemon soap and his hand tracing the curve of her hip, it felt like a door was opening they hadn't walked through in a long time. His hand moved slightly, upward, just enough to send a ripple of awareness down her spine. She turned, this time fully, facing him with the dish towel still damp in her hands. Their eyes met, really met, and for a heartbeat, neither moved. It wasn't about the kitchen anymore, it was about everything they had left unsaid at the dinner table, every small glance missed in the noise of daily life. "You still look at me that way," she whispered before she realized she had spoken aloud. "And you still make it hard not to," he replied, voice low, almost rough. A quiet laugh slipped from her lips, a mix of nervousness and the thrill of being seen. But beneath it, there was a pull, one she hadn't felt this strongly in months. He stepped in closer now, his fingers brushing the back of her hand. "Tell me to stop," he said gently. She didn't. And that was the moment, the silence before the storm, the breath before everything shifted. The air felt almost electric now, humming with a charge neither of them could ignore. Her fingers tightened around the damp dish towel as his hand lingered against hers, the touch feather-light but heavy with meaning. Neither of them spoke. Words seemed too fragile for what was building between them, something that had been waiting, quietly, beneath the rhythm of their days. He leaned in slightly, not enough to close the gap, but enough for her to feel his breath trace her cheek. Her pulse quickened, matching the subtle rise and fall of his chest. It was maddening, this pause, this waiting. A single inch felt like a mile. His thumb brushed the inside of her wrist, slow and deliberate, sending a shiver that traveled all the way to her neck. She tried to steady her breath, but it came out shaky, betraying the calm she wanted to keep. Her eyes flicked to his, dark, steady, holding a question he didn't dare ask aloud. "Why do you always stop here?" she whispered, almost daring him. He gave a faint smile, the kind that spoke of restraint wrapped in hunger. "Because I want you to meet me halfway." Her lips parted, a soft exhale escaping before she could catch it. For a moment, her hand moved on its own, resting against his chest, feeling the steady thrum beneath his shirt. The warmth there felt alive, demanding, like the room had shrunk to just the two of them and the inches between their mouths. The kitchen seemed to still. The running water had stopped long ago, the world outside gone quiet. All that remained was the pull, unspoken, magnetic, and dangerously close to breaking through. His hand slid to her lower back, fingers resting just enough to make her lean in without realizing it. Their foreheads almost touched now, breaths mingling, the taste of the moment right there but not yet taken. And then, he stopped, eyes locked on hers, waiting. The moment hovered between them, fragile and fierce all at once. Her breath came slow, almost shaky, as his hand rested against her back, keeping her close but not yet crossing that invisible line. Their foreheads nearly touched, their eyes locked in a quiet storm that begged for more, until the sudden vibration of his phone on the counter broke the spell. She flinched slightly at the sound. He didn't move right away, only glanced toward the screen that lit up with a name she didn't recognize. A woman's name. Her hand slipped from his chest before she even realized it, the warmth fading like a candle snuffed too soon. "Who is that?" she asked, her voice low but laced with something sharper now. He hesitated, just a second too long. "Work," he said, turning the phone face down. But hesitation always leaves a mark, and she felt it. The heat in her cheeks shifted, part of it still from the closeness, part of it from a sudden rush of doubt she didn't want to feel. He noticed. His thumb brushed her side gently, as if trying to anchor her. "Hey," he murmured, "don't drift away from me now." Her eyes searched his, looking for the truth in the quiet lines of his face. There was no anger, no guilt, but something unreadable lingered there, like a door only half closed. "Then tell me why it felt like you hesitated," she said softly, not pulling away, but not stepping closer either. He let out a breath that sounded more like a sigh than an answer. "Because I'm afraid of ruining this moment with everything outside it." The words softened the edge, just enough for her to stay where she was. And yet, the seed of doubt had found a place to rest, growing alongside the heat that still pulsed between them. His hand moved again, this time more sure, resting against her jaw, guiding her to meet his eyes fully. "I don't want you to feel like second in line," he said, the weight of his voice heavier now. She swallowed hard, the tension in her chest both aching and alive. "Then show me," she whispered. The distance between them closed again, but now it was layered, passion laced with questions, desire threaded with something they both needed to face. The kiss didn't come yet, but it hovered there, suspended with the heat of all the words left unspoken. And just as his fingers traced the edge of her neck, his phone vibrated again. The phone buzzed again, the sound slicing through the thick air like a thread pulled too tight. Her eyes flicked toward it, then back to him, her breath caught somewhere between anticipation and unease. This time, he didn't look away. He reached for the phone slowly, turned it over, and pressed the screen so she could see. It wasn't a name she expected, it was his sister, the one he rarely spoke about, the one who only called when something serious had happened. "She's been trying to get me to come visit, she's sick," he said quietly, his voice suddenly carrying a weight far from the teasing heat of moments ago. The doubt in her chest loosened, replaced by something warmer, concern, guilt for thinking the worst, and a sudden surge of protectiveness. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "Because I didn't want it to become another reason for distance between us," he admitted, fingers still gently brushing her jaw. "I wanted tonight to be about us. About remembering what we have, not what we might lose." Her heart softened, the sting of suspicion giving way to something deeper, relief laced with aching tenderness. She stepped closer, placing her hand over his, feeling the quiet tremble in his fingers. "You don't have to carry that alone," she said, her voice steady now. "Not with me." That was the moment it shifted, not from doubt to trust, but from longing to connection. His forehead rested against hers, and the silence this time was full, not empty. Their breaths mingled, their closeness no longer a question but an answer. When he finally kissed her, it wasn't rushed or fiery, it was slow, deliberate, the kind that built warmth in the chest and sent a shiver down the spine. His hands framed her face, hers curled into his shirt, the world around them shrinking until there was nothing left but the weight of their promise, unspoken, yet suddenly undeniable. The phone buzzed again in the background, but neither of them reached for it this time. The kiss lingered, not for its heat, but for its meaning. It was the kind of kiss that said everything they hadn't found words for: apologies, promises, the quiet ache of missing each other even while sharing the same space. When they finally pulled back, their foreheads stayed together, breaths still mingling in the warm air of the kitchen. He cupped her cheek, thumb tracing along her skin as though memorizing it. "I didn't realize how far apart we'd started to drift," he said softly. She gave a small smile, one that trembled at the edges but held steady. "Maybe we both forgot how simple it can be, just to pause, to look at each other like this." For the first time in weeks, maybe months, the kitchen felt alive, not because of the warm light or the faint scent of soap and dinner still lingering, but because they were present, truly present. No distractions, no screens, no half-spoken words. Just them. He took her hands in his, fingers threading through hers as though anchoring them both. I want to be here more, he admitted. Even when the world pulls in every direction. And I want to stop letting the noise fill the spaces we used to keep for us, she replied, her voice low but steady. They stood like that for a while, quiet, close, no rush to move on from the moment. When he finally wrapped his arms around her, it wasn't with the heat of urgency, but with the warmth of something far stronger, intention. She leaned in, resting her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat beneath her ear. Tomorrow, he whispered, we'll call her together. We'll make the plans. She nodded against him. Together, she echoed. The night stretched on gently, the dishes still waiting in the sink but no longer feeling like a chore. Instead, they stood there swaying slightly, wrapped in each other, the kitchen their quiet witness to a promise renewed, not just to love each other, but to keep choosing each other. As the last light faded beyond the curtains, he pressed a kiss to her forehead, lingering for a moment longer before murmuring, this is what I missed. And for the first time in a long time, she believed they had found their way back.